Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Blame It on Marketing with Emma and Ruta. You are very lucky today because it's just Ruta and I. We thought we'd be a little bit self-indulgent because it's New Year, so New Year, and you just get us on the podcast. It's not because we couldn't find a guest. It's actually just because we wanted to have a really good chat all around kind of marketing, resolutions and predictions for 2023. We also wanted to have an opportunity to have a cocktail together. We've both got our Negronis on the go. Big Negroni fans over here. Because, you know, there's nothing like having a chat about marketing with straight liquor.
Oh, yeah. It's the only way to go. I always like to tell the story of when we worked together and I came back from holiday and it was Monday when I got back, and by about 4 p.m. on Monday I was like, Emma, we're going to need to go for a drink tonight. And you were like, okay.
Yeah.
So that's how it's done. Although, marketers out there, if you don't drink, I don't know how you do it.
I mean, more power to you if you don't drink and you manage to get through marketing. I mean, obviously, like one of the taglines of this podcast is, you know, we needed to do this because we couldn't afford more therapy. So, you know, you can imagine the kind of things that Ruta and I have kind of gone through. And that's what we wanted to do in this episode. We wanted to talk a bit more about all of that kind of stuff, the reasons behind doing the podcast, and also some of those amazing resolutions and stuff that we've heard from other awesome marketers out there. So, Ruta, I'll start off by asking you the question. Tell everyone a bit more about you.
Excellent. This is horrible. I still don't like doing this on calls. So I guess let's start at uni because that's probably appropriate. My marketing background is non-existent. I'm actually an economics degree. I love statistics. I love metrics, which is probably something you can gauge, maybe, hopefully. I got into my first job after uni. That was sales for a tech company. So I used to sell domain names. And then I very quickly got a job in MarTech, where I was a salesperson, but I was spending my days talking to marketing people, basically. And I've always loved creating content. So when I was a teenager, I had a YouTube channel and that kind of thing. So I taught myself how to market through working at a MarTech company, but being a salesperson, so doing marketing for myself, essentially. And then I moved to PatSnap, and then I moved to ClearReview, which is where I met Emma. So I've always been a generalist, by the way, in terms of my marketing experience. I've never specialized in anything. I've always worked in B2B, primarily SaaS, minus my first domain job, but that doesn't count really. So yeah, I did quite well at ClearReview, although I don't think they had much option other than to promote me because there was no time to hire people. So, you know, it's good timing. And I think I was good at my job, but it's also good timing, you know. I was very young, you know, looking back at it. I feel like I'm a different person now as well, looking back at my experience at ClearReview. But that's how Emma and I met, and we were colleagues on the same team. And now I'm a consultant, and I work with B2B businesses to help them with their marketing. And I also run some software things like budgeting, and I'm also going to be building a marketing metrics platform, which I'm very excited about in 2023.
It's very exciting, Ruta. I want to ask you a couple of questions about your experience because obviously I know you, but I think some of the things that yeah. I think I'm going to interview you for a sec because why not? There's a couple of things that are really interesting about your experience. First of all, you started out as a salesperson, and I think that's always really interesting to pick up because I know you've obviously got a bit of a take about how actually being a salesperson has really helped you with your marketing. So tell me.
I think any marketer that does a bit of sales will be a better marketer. I don't think that could ever make you a worse marketer, and I think it's because you go through the pain of having to generate your own leads. At least I did. I know that some sales teams don't work like that anymore, but I was like a 360 salesperson. So I would get the demos and I would close them, like the whole thing. So you go through a lot of rejection and heartache, and you kind of learn what works and what doesn't work. Now, I wasn't a fantastic salesperson, probably why I moved, although the shit I was selling wasn't great either. So maybe if I was at a company where the product was really hot and it was really kind of fun to sell, I would have stayed, which is a whole other tangent. But I think it's important to understand each other's pains and be able to speak each other's language, and doing some sales inevitably helps that. And obviously as a consultant, I do my own sales as much as they're not, you know, salesy, but I do have to generate business. So it it really helps. There's nothing more to say about it. I don't think anyone could, do themselves a disservice by learning a bit of sales as a marketer, or a marketer learning or a salesperson learning a bit about marketing either, right?
I agree. I think it's a really good solid foundation actually for all. If you're either a salesperson, you go into marketing, or vice versa. I think to have done the other person's job, to know what it's like to have walked a day in each other's shoes, I think is actually quite important. And I think it's something that in your experience stands out, because you totally get the salespeople, which you can't say the same for all of our marketing friends,
No.
So
and there's some sometimes I think if marketers haven't been in sales, they assume that it's a lot easier and a lot more formulaic than it actually is, because you have a people basically fundraising background, and just how complex that relationship can be with every single buyer that you have. So it's not just just send them some of this content and it will do magic. That's not how it works. I think being cognizant of that is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about in your kind of experience is obviously Clear Review. We know, and you will now know by listening to this podcast, super, super successful, amazing product, amazing team, some sort of unicorn type magical experience.
Something happened, yeah.
Something beautiful happened that is very rare at that company, and I think a lot of credit goes to the founder, Stuart Hearn. He's going to get a shout out for creating an organisation who love you that allowed all of us to kind of flourish, as well as had an amazing product that we were selling as well. What have you learned post Clear Review? Because it's been a couple of years now, so I'm interested to see what kind of stuff you've learned.
I don't think I learned this, but it definitely reaffirmed my belief in it. And it's the fact that you can't outmarket a shit product, especially in B2B SaaS. You can do it to some extent in consumer goods, because, we've all seen it happen. But in B2B SaaS, it's really hard to market something that somebody doesn't want, or it doesn't have. It's not a problem that people need to solve. That's difficult. I've seen companies try to do it. It costs a lot of money, and it needs a lot of apologetics basically to make it work. And I also think one of the things that I will always really admire and credit Stuart for, Stuart helped create a category which is continuous performance management, and he caught onto that super quickly. So Clear Review as a product didn't exist when he started doing this, but what he did is that he absolutely owned the internet when it came to organic search on anything to do with continuous performance management. And I've spoken to quite a few of Clear Review competitors since then, and they can't touch the SEO. That long-term thinking and that long-term investment, because it was thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds before it did anything, ended up playing out so well. And it's something that's still bringing them money actively now, and will do until something changes or the product goes out of style or whatever it might be. So getting in early and being the voice for the thing that you're doing is so important. And I'm sure you have this a lot, Emma, as well. A lot of clients want instant revenue and instant results and, quick and dirty tactics. But Clear Review can just stop spending money on marketing now if they really wanted to. They probably wouldn't grow. They would maintain what they're doing. But that long-term thinking and that investment really, really shone. And that's something that I don't see a lot in companies at all now. It's all kind of quick and dirty tactics. How much can I spend on PPC? What's the ROI of releasing this page? Who the fuck knows? And if they do know, they're lying. It's not a thing you can predict. So yeah, that's what I really admire about Clear Review. And also, we always hired great people. We always hired as senior as we could, the best people that we could find. And I think that obviously just allowed us to grow and actually develop as we did.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think lots of very senior, intelligent, smart people allowed to flourish. And I say allowed to flourish because I think quite often lots of businesses bring in the same sorts of people. And I know we're bigging ourselves up by saying, yeah, very smart senior people. But I'm going to get rid of the modesty, because we are. And when you have a room full of people like that, the best thing that you can do as a leader is to allow those people to actually do their jobs properly. And I think we were enabled to do that. So, I mean, kudos to Stuart and the other senior leaders at Clearview, which you were one of them, Ruta. But you don't often get that. It's quite rare.
I can't ever remember asking either Stuart or Dan, who was my manager before Stuart, or John, who was also my manager. I don't ever remember asking for them to do something and they were like, yeah, nah. Like, ever. Not anything serious. It might have been like something stupid I wanted to say that they would have been like, oh, maybe not. And at some point I convinced them otherwise. But like anything we wanted to do, basically they were like, well, have you got the money? Have you got the time to do it? Go try it.
Go do it. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it shows because they invested in things like, you know, when I was there, I was running the customer advocacy program, which still to a lot of, you know, B2B companies is an unheard of thing to even try and do. And they literally, you know, everyone just gave me full bandwidth. Here is the door. It is wide open. Go after it. Go do it and make it successful. And then to our credit, it was successful for that reason. So I think, like I say, it's not the norm. It's not I've never worked at a company that has been so open to allowing people to actually be autonomous, but also like fostering really good working together at the same time.
And supporting you when you needed the support as well. Because I guess the other thing can happen, right, where you're like free to do whatever you like, but also like it's on your own back, and if shit doesn't go right, like that's you. Whilst it never felt like that there. So Emma, time to interrogate you. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I think I'm a bit of a weirdo, and I've had a weird journey into marketing. So I started off working in the third sector, so in the charity sector, and I have done all sorts of different jobs, from like transcribing books into Braille and doing like audio work for people with vision loss and that sort of stuff, all the way through to doing the fundraising jobs that Ruta talked about and running sort of like a big membership body. And that was really interesting because you, throughout your, if anyone's ever worked in the third sector, everyone will know this who has worked in the sector. If you haven't, you'd be like, what? We have like no resources. We very rarely have any money, and you do everything yourself. So if you are membership, you are running the marketing, the comms, the relationships between people. You're doing all of that kind of stuff. And in that last third sector job before I crossed over into the dark side of corporate life, although I have to say it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I learned all about that sort of like community building side of things. What happens when you bring a really amazing group of people together to actually work on, you know, I think in the corporate sector we were always like, oh, it's not life or death, or it's not, you know, like a medical emergency. Whereas when you work in the third sector, you know, it is life or death, and it is generally either a medical emergency or a social issue that you're trying to solve as an NGO. And so, you know, the stakes are quite high. And so obviously when you're bringing those people together in a space to discuss that stuff, it feels very powerful. So that whole like power of community, how it's a two-way street, all that stuff kind of for me came from there. And then I went to work for Clearview as head of customer advocacy. And as I said before, like everyone just went, just go and do whatever you want, build relationships, do some great marketing. And I was really lucky because our marketing team, amazing. Every time I was like, I've got this crazy idea, you guys were just like, yeah, let's do it. And that again, yeah. And again, I think that counts for a lot because it's not I've never worked anywhere that's been like that before. And so from there, kind of broadened out my marketing skills, realised I probably had more marketing skills than I knew that I had, and have gone on to do various other jobs at B2B SaaS companies. So head of growth marketing, I've been done lots of community and campaign stuff. And now I kind of run my own business and help lots of organizations sort out from their growth marketing. So looking at their metrics, trying to figure that out, through to building communities and looking at their customer advocacy. And I'd like to do more customer advocacy stuff, really. I think that's my love. in terms of marketing. I love the data side, but I also love the community building advocacy side, because to me that's where like the proper magic happens, you know, like when you're like, look at all these customers we brought in because everyone loves what we've done. And yeah, that's something that you can't do you can do it online, but it's something that it's a feeling. That sounds really cringe. It's a feeling more than a like output. That's me.
Agreed. Although Emma's very hot on the output. Don't get that twisted.
No.
If you're bringing in money, she ain't doing it.
That's the fundraiser in me. I think that's the fundraiser that's like, no. What do you mean? You can't just do things for the sake of it. That's not good enough. There's got to be something generated at the end.
Something that I absolutely love about you and love like working with you because of this is you've got a very high sense of ethics, and that comforts me on a very deep level. How do you think that came about? Do you think that is from your third sector experience, or have you always just been that kind of person?
Oh, it is interesting. I think it is. I think it's third sector, definitely, as in the quality of the work and the sort of like collaborating in a joined mission and actually doing it properly. But I also think, this is a bit shady to say this, but I also think it's because when I've worked in the third sector, I've also seen the polar opposite. So I've seen people who are allegedly coming together for a shared purpose or cause, and that's not really what's at the bottom of, that's not really what's going on underneath. And I think, I mean, that's partly one of the reasons I left. That sounds incredibly cryptic, and I don't want to get myself in trouble. It's not any of the organisations that I used to work for, but I have seen people do some incredibly shady shit in the third sector. Shady shit. And I just think, to me, that means it's like everything you do should have integrity. Your marketing should have integrity. The way you act, you should just be, you know, it's all that stuff that I mean, obviously it's like my morals as well, like who I am as a person. But yeah, it's because I've seen a lot of shady shit happen, my friend.
I didn't know much about the third sector before I met you, but one of the things that struck me, which was really interesting, is that you don't often equate startups and third sector people together, but it's so similar. It's so scrappy, like you've got to make things out of nothing, that kind of thing, which is I think one of the reasons why when Emma was interviewing we were like, oh my god, like this is the perfect fit. And I always like to tell the story like, after you were the first person we saw that day, and after that I was like, yep, she's the one. And my boss was like, calm down, don't get too excited. And I'm like, nope, she's the one. And she was the one. I think one of the episodes that's upcoming with Timmy, where we talk about virtue signaling, that side of you really comes out. So if you're interested in that, watch that. I think it's coming out in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, if you want to see us get very ragey about people saying doing stupid stuff, that's the episode for you.
That's the one. Shall we talk about some New Year's resolutions?
Yes, go on, hit me with your first one.
Oh, I'm going first.
Yeah,
okay,
you're going first.
This is this is like a personal, but also is marketing and work related. You'll understand why. So I've been a consultant for 2 years now, and part of being a consultant was the idea that I'd wouldn't work full-time as a consultant and I'd do a bunch of my own projects. And it turns out I am incredibly bad at prioritizing anything that isn't to do with a client, and where there's no, external pressure to do stuff. So one of my kind of biggest resolution for the year is to make sure that I prioritize my projects, not, obviously not ahead of clients, but as equally as important as my client work. So things like Blame It on Marketing can happen, and the metrics platform that I want to build can happen, and all of those things, because it's so easy to just not do that and be like, it's okay, I've done my client work, I can just chill now and not worry about it.
Yeah, that's so important, because I think, I mean, without getting into like all the troubles with our generation, etc., we're all screwed. Happy New Year. We're all screwed.
Happy New Year.
So you've got to prioritize. Of course, you've got to do your work and you've got to deliver great client work. But I think you're right. It's prioritizing some of the stuff that you actually want to achieve is really important, because we don't live in a world anymore where you can do a 9-to-5 job and have everything that you want and live the lifestyle that you want anymore. Doom and gloom. and you've got to do that. You've got to prioritize, your stuff. Okay, one of mine. Well, one of mine's very similar actually, and I think it's because again, a little bit of personal detail here. Obviously I now run Advocitude full time. It's been going for a couple of years in the background, and I then was like, I'm just going to commit and actually do it properly this year. And so I've been doing that full steam ahead, and I also took on Rita's gonna laugh. I took on a dog that is deeply traumatized, a rescue dog, and I think between work and the dog, there has been no Emma time. And I think in order to stay sane and to actually do the best work, I have to prioritize myself somewhere in all of that. So there will be a little bit of me in a similar way to you, I guess, Ruta, like going forth and being like, actually, I have to look after myself, because otherwise those other things don't happen. So maybe not all project making money, all that kind of stuff. But I think some of the like actually looking after myself as a human being is top of the list for this year.
I agree. I think like subliminally that's also included in my project one, just making sure that I'm on top of my own stuff. And doing enough therapy through this podcast and going outside and doing all those good things that are good for you. So yeah, I totally relate to that, and I think that's great advice for anyone, because also I feel like being a marketer is all consuming. It's everywhere. You can think about it all the time. You get triggered, not in a bad way, but as in like you watch an advert and you're like, oh, I wonder what they were thinking there, and it's like so encompassing. You have to kind of make space to be just a normal human.
The thing is as well, and I think this probably goes the same for lots of jobs, people always come to you. So like if you've got friends who are running their own businesses, or you've got like whatever, like your network, people will always come to you with questions. It is relentless. And I think, Ruta, we both have the same issue in that we want to be the best at marketing that we can possibly be. And obviously that comes with a price tag. And sometimes that price tag is, everything else in your life. And we have to sometimes take a step back and actually make sure we look after ourselves. And I think, we've talked about this before, because one of the things that used to come up a lot actually when we worked at Clear Review was talking about burnout and what if you can't afford to be burnt out and all that kind of stuff. But there are ways of taking a step back and switching off, like things like not looking at your phone in the evening and going outside and going for a walk and all those kind of things that don't sort of physically take you away from marketing and having those conversations. So definitely more of that, please.
Agree. So agree. I can do another one if you like. It's not in the spirit of not doing work, it's in the spirit of doing work, but actually doing more work that I enjoy. So I love marketing execution. Like, I love it. That's my favorite bit of marketing, doing the actual work, putting it out, seeing what happens. And because I'm a consultant, I tend to talk a lot about marketing. And this is actually, the podcast doesn't count because I get to edit it, which is like doing the work, which is so fun. But I just want to do more of the work that I enjoy. And hopefully have the, privilege to pick and do the work that I enjoy this year, which is, if anyone else has gone from a marketing like in-house to consultant, you can probably relate.
Yeah, and it's hard because once you get to a certain point, you feel like the execution days might be behind you. But I think you and I also both really strongly feel that you've got to keep your finger on that. Like, if you stop doing the work and you're just talking about it, you probably don't know what you're talking about anymore. Sorry to say that.
I think
it's true.
Couple of years and you're out the game, basically, which is terrifying because things move so fast, right? Especially nowadays.
Yeah, the tech is moving along. Like, it terrifies me that I'll one day have a client that's like, oh, I'll have no clients that, and then none of them will have HubSpot or something, and I'll be like, oh shit, I don't know how HubSpot works anymore. It's one of those real terrifying realities for us, so you've got to keep doing it. But I think it's a very good one. Do the work that you love, do the bits that you enjoy. Shall I go next? Mine is tied to, so obviously, Ruta, you asked loads of people on LinkedIn about their resolutions, and this is one of mine, and it was to sort of up your organic social game, because we understand, you know, we're going into a recession. I think we all kind of understand that it's going to be maybe harder and longer than anything we've potentially seen before, because we've got cost of living crisis. We've got, the world is not a peachy place. It's relentless. It's not good. And I think one of the ways to make yourself stay visible, I think whether that's you're an individual contributor, you're a consultant, you're a business, whatever that might be, is to actually focus your efforts on your social media. And I don't mean just going on TikTok and making stuff for the sake of it, even though that might be fun. I don't really know what that's going to get you. I mean, we talk about that with Will in our first episode. So if you need to refer back, go to the Will episode. But I think as people who are, I guess we're experts in our field, to share that love more widely, and to be useful to my marketing peers as well, because there are so many people who don't have people like us around to bounce things off, and I would like to be more of that person for other people. You know, like, if you ever want to chat, hit me up.
Yeah, agreed. Same. You're going to laugh because actually, so I wrote this down. There's proof of this. Number 3 is double down on educating marketers on how to advocate for themselves through metrics.
Amen.
If it's ever been needed, it's going to be the next 2 years. So it's identical to yours, basically. And I think we take quite a strict view on this between the two of us, and maybe we're too extreme, but I feel like it needs to be done so that people can land somewhere in the middle.
I don't know that we are too extreme. I think the reason that you and I take the line that we do on metrics is because we've worked so many places where the conversations have not been driven by data. And I think when you've worked in those environments, you know, you're working with people who are just guessing, and they're doing things on a whim or on a feeling, and that is not a way to run a business. So you and I think we just advocate for listening to the numbers and listening to what the actual science side is telling you, rather than like, I have a feeling we should do this event. Okay, what does that mean? Like, no. Let's not waste money.
And it's okay if you end up doing it because you've never done it before or whatever, but like, you have to be aware that that's why you're doing it. You know, like we talk about 80-20, 80% of what you know and what's going to work, 20% new stuff, because some of the new stuff's going to work. But yeah, I think the thing that upsets me the most, and like the thing that I could like scream from rooftops, is so many companies absolutely pull the fucking numbers out of their ass by people who have nothing to do with marketing, have never looked at any of the marketing metrics, and then basically set up their marketing teams to fail from day dot. And they don't give a shit. Marketing's underperforming as far as they're concerned. And it's like, wait, how are you expecting a 5 ROI this year if my input is the same and my team is the same and we're doing the same shit because you don't give us more budget or you don't change how we work? It's impossible, and it angers me to the deepest core. So that's personally why I'm really strict with it, and why I continuously coach marketers to be like, know your numbers, know how the numbers break down, and then when somebody suggests a wild number to you, you take them through the logic of why this doesn't work. And if they want you to deliver on that number, be like, sure, but it's probably not going to happen, and this is what you should actually be expecting, and then work from there, because otherwise it's just a fucking shit show.
Yeah, I mean, nothing in the world works when you just take a guess, when you guess. Like, sometimes you can take a punt on something, but you're not going to take your whole marketing budget or whatever and take a punt on something. You know, you're going to actually, you want to do it based on reality, that's something that's grounded in reality, that you know works and speaks to your audience and all the rest of the stuff that we talk about constantly. It's deeply irritating. And then the problem is that, like we said, you know, that's where marketing get the blame. That's when we're blamed. It's like, you know, and it's crap. And the problem is, like you say, I think quite a lot of marketers don't know how to advocate for themselves and don't know how to necessarily have those data-driven conversations. And that is important. So I would just say, I think for any marketer listening, it doesn't matter if you're a copywriter or you're a social media manager or you're a SEO, you should know the numbers in the same capacity as your head of marketing or your CMO. Like, we should all know them. We should be able to hopefully knows them. We should all be able to,
yeah.
we've got to sing from the same hymn sheet, guys. And I think we all have to take responsibility of that. Otherwise we're all going to be screwed, because recession is coming. Budgets, bye-bye.
Yeah. And if you don't know your numbers, you can't fight to keep your budget, or even, to keep the jobs on your marketing team. If you don't know your numbers, you can't make a case for staying and for being useful to the company. And if you do work at a place where the numbers are atrocious, it's also good to know that, because it's probably not going to go very well unless somebody does something about it. So maybe you can be that person that, leads that change potentially, but there's just no way to get around it, I don't think, anymore. Unless, I don't know, unless they really don't care and you make brochure, I don't know. It to me, it feels unreasonable. I don't think you can get away with it anymore.
I don't think so either, but I also think, it goes back to quite a lot of the conversations we've had. It's where your marketing team sits within the position in your company, like how they are perceived, what's expected of you, all of that kind of stuff. And if you are just expected to be the brochure making department, then maybe people don't care about your numbers. But I think if you, it goes back to my core value, Ruta, which is integrity and being ethical. If you feel that way and you think the output that you're putting out there is shit, you need to look for another job. You're in the wrong job. So if everything that we say is resonating with you and you're going, oh my God, my company don't care, or they're constantly blaming us, the reality is, unless you can have a meaningful conversation with someone where you're not going to get thrown under the bus, then you should be looking for another job. Yeah,
I agree. Have you got any more resolutions for us, Sams?
I have, the only other one is really, I think it goes back to the social media stuff, and I think it's more around like personal brand stuff, is that I think that's really important for all of us. Showing yourself to be a decent human in what are going to be quite trying times, I think is really, really important. I will also revert back to Ian's episode, which was the last podcast episode, talking about like how to be an actual thought leader. And I think if you really want to do that, put in the work, show up, show integrity, help the community of people that you are kind of responsible for. So for us, it's marketers. How can Ruta and I help you? Like, actually tell us, we'll do it. If you work for HR tech, because we've dealt with a lot of HR tech companies, if you are, like, how are you helping people in that industry, all of that kind of stuff, and how can your personal brand be the vehicle that helps you do that, I think is really, really important. So making sure you kind of show up and be, just don't be a dick, basically, is that is how it's, don't be a dick online.
Is that a resolution?
Don't be a dick online.
I agree.
Yeah.
We had a whole text interchange because I'm the person that has access to the TikTok channel, and there was someone on there being quite mean, and at the end they totally backpedaled and were like, "Oh, I'm just joking," no, and I'm like, "No, you weren't, Vic. You were literally saying we're the dumbest people you've ever worked with. Not like me and Emma personally, but marketers." And I just kind of I made a joke, and then I showered him with love, and then he was like, "Oh well, I hope you get past your 200 followers." And I was like, "With every comment you make, the chances are going up. That's how it works." And he was like, "Oh, I was just joking. Good luck to you." And just why? Just go away.
You see, this is what people forget. I think. I'm trying to remember what it was, where there was that guy, was it during the pandemic, who was making awful comments, and then people tracked him down and he got fired from his job, the estate agent guy who's like trolling people on Twitter. You've got to be careful. Like, you can't be a troll online anymore and not have people. Also, if that's taught us anything, if you've seen the Netflix documentary Don't Fuck With Cats, you will realise that people will track you down. So you just can't. You can't do it. Be nice. Yeah. Just gonna put that out there. Also,
don't come after marketers. We are the battering ram. We don't give a shit. Like, this is not the audience to go after if you want to be a troll. Just saying. Thank you, Emma. I think there's some good resolutions. By the way, no, nothing from me, but I wanted to say that there's a whole host of really cool marketers that we know that gave us their resolutions. So if you want to go read that, I'll attempt to put a link in the description of this episode to go read about those guys. And yeah, if you enjoy this episode, let us know. It's just the two of us. We intend to bring on more guests as always. I've got a whole catalogue. But yeah, let us know what you thought and what your resolutions are, I guess. Sweet. Did I just do the outro by accident?
Yeah, I think that count. I think you're done.
Okay, we're done. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.